Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Josh Bam Bam Brown. Welcome back to Brown Overboard. Physical fitness. In my life, physical fitness has been very front and center. It is something that I was forced to participate in simply because if you wanted to survive in the world that I lived in, you had to be very physically active. Basically, everything that we needed to do to survive required us to be physically active. It required us to be physically fit, at least to a moderately applicable extent. Didn't have to be, crazy Olympians, but you had to be able to haul your own water. You had to be able to pack a deer out once you got one. You had to be able to carry yourself and your gear a long way. You had to be able to pick up your pack and your weapon and everything that you needed to survive out there and be able to haul it all day long. So my life actually forced me to be very physically active, and in a good way. It was always something that I definitely enjoyed. And then I myself have always really enjoyed working out. I've always liked to stay in shape. And some of my brothers are as into working out as I am, some not as much. Now, Gaby, very much so. And throughout our life, our dad taught us how to work out, how to lift weights, how to do, Tai Chi, and he taught us a bunch of things of stretches and different ways to work out and how you can work out when you have equipment and how you can work out when you don't. And there are a lot of exercises that you can do just with body weight, pull-ups, push-ups, things like that, doing dips on chairs, all of these things. So he taught us a lot of ways to stay physically fit and physically active. And a lot of it also is not just lifting heavy things. It's not just walking and climbing and running and doing all that. It's also staying limber. It is about, stretching and working your body out in that way so that it stays used to moving, because you want to keep everything in line so that when you need to move, when you need to run, when you need to climb, your body is ready to do that. And that's something that we've always been very into. And again, our life forced us to be that way, but it's something that we also enjoyed doing day to day. There were many times when we had a weight bench set up on the back deck of the boat. Sometimes there wasn't enough room to have it set up all the time, so you would have to actually break it down and reset it up every time you wanted to use it. It wasn't the type of thing where you had the room to just have a gym that was always set up and you could use it whenever you wanted to. So like Gaby and I would actually go onto the back deck of the boat and we would, spend however much time to hook up the weight bench and put it all together and get it going and get a good session in and then break it all back down and put it away. And we would do that like every day. And that's at the end of the day, after all the other things that you have to do that day, which are already pretty physically active things that you had to do. Chopping wood is another one. Always loved to chop wood. I still love to chop wood. It is something that I always enjoy doing. I find it very meditative to get out there and chop wood. It's something that is a lot of fun. It's physically active. And as I said, is very meditative for me. It's something that really my brothers and I always fought over doing. It was never something that was a chore that Dad had a hard time finding someone to do, and Dad would also fight to do it as well. So we all fought to be the one to get to chop the wood. So there was always plenty of wood chopped and put away when we needed it, which was something that we needed a lot more of when we lived in Haines versus living on the boats. But in Haines, we needed a lot of wood to burn through the winter because they had some pretty good winters up there, and we heated with wood. But there was no shortage of wood to chop, and there was no shortage of people that wanted to chop the wood. Now, Gaby is extremely into fitness. Very much so. And he and I have different body types. A lot of people hate it when I say this, but I cannot gain weight to save my life. I have a very active metabolism, and it is extremely difficult for me to gain weight. It is really hard for me to try to pack on any mass and to build the mass of muscle. Now, I've always been physically fit. I've always had a good base. I've never had an issue with anything like that. I've always leaned more towards the skinnier side. Like Gaby and I have always joked that if we weren't as physically active as we have always been, and if we didn't fight to work out as much as we do, that he would be a fat little guy and I would be a skinny dude. So that is something that we always fought against in our life. And Gaby's able to put on the mass a lot easier than I am. And then I'm able to. I just can't do it. No matter how much I eat, no matter how much protein I put in, I can just eat from sunup to sundown, and I just can't seem to pack on any mass. I'm just able to build more muscles. The muscles get more defined, but I just can't. I can't build it out. I am never gonna look like Conan. And Gaby, on the other hand, he has less problem with that. His shoulders are the size of his head. Gaby is a big dude when it comes to the muscles. And he's also an ox. That kid can work constantly, all the time, all day long. And then when he's done, stop and lift some weights. Gaby, in between his turn for busting wood, would be over there doing push-ups or lifting the blocks of wood that we were busting before they were busted, full rounds of wood, just over there picking them up, doing reps with them. I have seen him do reps with full logs before. Very recently, I've seen him do that. The other day, I'm doing a tire swap, and to make it easier and more efficient with swapping tires between the summer and the winter, and also to save a little bit of money, it's better if you have winter tires that are on the rim and then you have summer tires also on the rim, so that you're not having to swap the tire onto the same rim every season. Makes it a lot easier when you have the separate rims. So Gaby was helping me load out large truck tires with the rims on, and he just grabbed one in each arm. He just picked up one in each arm and took off with them. So he has no problem with something like that. And then recently there was one time, well, I guess it was a little while back now, we were offloading 50-pound bags of feed for the animals. And Gaby goes over to the back of the truck, and he just grabs one, and he throws it over his left shoulder. And then he grabs another one and throws it over his arm. And he grabs a third one and throws it over his arm. And then he grabs one and has it under the other arm and walks off with it. Those are 50-pound bags. The kid's walking around with like 250 pounds like it's nothing, just thrown on his shoulder and walking away with it. Like, where do you want this? And I think one thing that comes from as well is that throughout our life, hauling wood, hauling lumber, hauling whatever it was we were hauling, if it was something that was giant and heavy and we all had to haul it together, we would do that. If it was something smaller and we were hauling a lot of them, instead of hauling like a reasonable amount and just doing it a bunch of times, we would always load our arms up, load ourselves up with as much as we could possibly carry until it was as heavy as the harder stuff, and then carry that. Both to do less trips, and also to get that workout in, to get that pump in, and be able to exert a little bit more energy while you're going. And it's things like that that have really kept us in shape. And the fact that we enjoy doing it is also nice. It's nice that we enjoy being physically active in that way. Like, I was always someone that was always doing pull-ups. Like, I enjoy doing pull-ups. It's always been something that I really like to do. Even when I was a kid on the boats, growing up on boats, I would climb up onto the boom and just do pull-ups off the boom all day long. And I remember there was a time in my mid-teens where I got busted up pretty good, and I couldn't do pull-ups. There was the time when it was one of those times where you're wounded and you got to heal before you can work out again. And one thing on that, fortunately, in recent times when I've had things like that happen, and even when I was younger, I have a good base from working out so long and from being so physically active that I don't lose a lot between the time that I get hurt, have to heal, and then can start working out again. Fortunately, that base gives you a good foundation that can hold on while you heal to get where you can work out again. But when I was in my mid-teens and I got all busted up, I couldn't do pull-ups at all. Once I healed from being hurt, it was like I just kind of lost the ability to do pull-ups. And I remember that really bothered me. And I was like, okay, definitely not accepting this. And I just did what little bit I could do to do the motion of a pull-up without actually pulling my whole weight. And I would do that over and over and over, day after day after day. I started with just lifting like an empty bar with no weights on it over my head. And I would just do light reps with that because that was just getting my body used to the motion again of doing the pull-up motion without actually having any of the pull or the weight or anything. And I would do that a bunch. And then I would hang off of things where my feet were still touching the ground and I could put a little bit of weight, a little bit of body weight, and then go through the motions. And I just did that over and over, day after day. And before you knew it, I was able to do pull-ups again. And I started off with one or two, and then I was doing a bunch more. I was able to get back to it where I could just continue to do pull-ups all the time because that's a workout that I really like to do. I enjoy dips on chairs, using a chair where you go backwards and do a dip, and I like doing pull-ups. I'm not the biggest push-up guy. I can do a lot of push-ups. It's something that I have done probably thousands and thousands and thousands of push-ups in my life, but I've messed up my wrists a few times, and I actually do knuckle-ups is what I do. I can't particularly recommend it to everybody. I mean, to each their own, but I find that when I'm doing a regular push-up, it puts a lot of weight on the back of my wrist. And when I do a lot of them, that can become an issue. So what I started doing, and I've been doing this since I was a teenager, is I will just use my knuckles. I'll just make a fist, and I put my fist on the ground, and then I do the push-ups off of my fists on my knuckles. Like I said, not something I can necessarily recommend to everybody, but it works for me. And when you find something that works for you, go for it. There are ways to do things, and you definitely want to check out the proper way to do stuff, but then you want to find the way that works for you, because there are a lot of ways for working out I have found that work for me that don't work for other people, but they work well for me. It's something that I'm able to do in that way, like knuckle ups instead of doing traditional push-ups, and it works for me. It doesn't bother my wrists. It doesn't hurt my hands to do it that way. I'm able to do a lot of push-ups that way and get that workout in without it bothering me because I just adjusted to it. I found the way that works for me. And there are a lot of workouts that you can do. There's a lot of ways that you can stay physically active without having the actual proper gear to work out. You don't have to have a gym. Now, my brothers and I and my dad, we used to love when we were somewhere where we could go to a gym. We've gone through a lot in the past to be able to go to like an actual gym and would love going in there and working out because it's really fun when there are all the machines and it's all scientific and you feel like you're Captain Kirk in there working out. It's a little bit different when you're doing the concrete blocks and whatnot and the bags of rocks that you're lifting. And we've always, for the most part, been able to carry around some dumbbells and always kind of have that. But there's definitely been a lot of times in our lives where we just filled up nets with rocks and stuff and would lift that. And do the body weight stuff, but always really enjoyed going to the gym, and I have a lot of really good memories of going to the gym, like when we were somewhere where we could go to the gym with my dad and my brothers, and Gaby, Bear, and I and Dad were always very into it. You know, we were always very into it. Bear was always a treadmill guy. Bear, of course, he's a runner. He loved to jump on a treadmill and kick that thing up as fast as it could go and just keep on running. And I remember a couple times in the gym because we weren't regulars, because we would, we would blow into town and then we would come to the gym for a little while and then we'd be gone. So we weren't someone that people saw there all the time. And so when we would go into a gym, I remember a couple of times Bear jumping up onto the treadmill and he would kick it up really fast. Like he would get on there and he would kick it up really fast and he would start running and people would just be like, ugh, right? This kid, he's going to burn out in 2 seconds. And he'd be up there for like 20, 30 minutes doing this on a really good run, like not an all out run, but not really a trot, not really a jog either. He was running. And he would do it for a good 20 minutes up there doing that. And I remember this one time, there were a couple people who were very into it. And they ended up just like standing there watching him for almost 30 minutes just because he's got good form. He was running the whole time. They didn't think he was going to be able to keep up the pace that he was on. And he did. And then in the end, even gave a jog for another 10 minutes after that. And I remember when he got off the treadmill, he was like getting high fives from people and stuff, because they were all like, they were pretty impressed, because these are all people that are like in there every day doing that, and so he's over there getting high fives from all the people. And then Dad, Gaby, and I, we would always just hit the regular machines. I was never a big treadmill guy. I do the treadmill like a little bit like that. Always kind of liked the like stair stepper things. Like there was one that's the infinite stairs. Always enjoyed that. I have climbed a lot of stairs. The infinite stair machine was always a lot of fun, counting the flights of stairs. I have done tons and tons of those, multiple Empire State Buildings worth of stairs in one go. The rowing machine, a lot of fun too. Always enjoyed to row. Rowing is something that I've always really enjoyed doing as a workout. So the rowing machine is a lot of fun in the gym. And just rowing in general is something that I like to do. That's actually something I've been able to do down here because I have like a little skiff and I'll take it and toss it into one of these lakes out here when I'm able to, stick it in the back of the truck, take it to the lake, throw it in, and then just row around the lake back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all over the place. And that's a lot of fun. And it's something that I grew up doing on the boats. I would just get into the skiff and I would whip the oars out and I would just row all over the place. I'd row along the bay. I would row around the boat. I would row everywhere. Got in trouble a couple times when I was younger because I was kind of told not to row out of sight, and then I ended up rowing a very, very long way away and back. And let's just say my parents were not incredibly thrilled that day because also, I took the skiff. I didn't really tell anybody, and then I just kind of took it, and I went way further away than I was supposed to. I was always kind of doing stuff like that. I can't recommend that you're supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do it that way. I should have listened, but I got really into it, because I love to row. And I remember doing the gym stuff with Dad was a lot of fun, and Dad enjoyed the gym because he always stayed very physically active. In his later years, it was a lot more difficult for him too, with the seizures, with the amount of injuries that he had sustained in his life. Even till the end, he stayed fairly physically active in all the ways that he could. But when before days when we'd go to the gym and stuff, Dad could lift a lot. He could lift a lot of weight, and he was never somebody that tried to impress anybody. He did it always, when it was just him, when he didn't think anybody was looking and things like that, because what Dad liked to do was, he always told us it's not how much you lift, it's how many times you lift it. Right. And that's something we really applied to when we only had a gallon of water to lift or something. You just do it over and over and over and over a billion times. But Dad liked to lift moderately, a lot of times almost to failure. And then he liked to kick the machines up to as much as he could lift and do that at least a couple times. And there were a few times when I saw him do that. It was very impressive, the amount of weight that he was able to drop on there and lift, because he would go about it and he would do his normal working out until he got to almost failure, and then he would kick it up to where he was going to do his 2 or 3 reps of the super heavy. And I don't even want to say how much it was that I saw him lift a few times, but it was a lot, and it was incredibly impressive. It was very impressive, the amount that Dad could lift. But there again, I remember when I was a kid, Dad could have worked anyone into the ground. Like, Dad was able to put such a massive amount of weight on his back and just carry it without any problem and basically never stopping, that it was incredibly impressive. Incredibly impressive. And he always acted like it was no big deal, because I think to him it wasn't really a big deal because he had built up so gradually to being that person. Because I remember Dad talking about how when he first got to Alaska, and Dad was always very physically fit. He used to fight tournaments and stuff, and he worked a lot of construction in his life, and he liked to work out, and he liked to be fit, and he was always athletic, and always did, water skiing and all kinds of stuff. And I remember him saying that when he first got to Alaska, he didn't realize how out of shape, quotations, he was, because when he would have to, walk all these distances, and you're walking on rocks and logs and up and down hills all day, and you're hauling 5 gallons, 6-7 gallons of jugs of water and fuel all the time. He said that he felt worn out constantly, is what he said. He said every day he felt like he was just totally worn out all the time. And then he said there was a point where something just clicked and he stopped feeling worn out. He said that he was just able to go all day and chop the wood and haul the water and carry kids around and pack propane bottles and do all of this stuff. And it just clicked at a certain point where he just stopped wearing out. He stopped getting tired because of it. And he said when he was done at the end of the day, he felt good and it wasn't an issue. That, I think, is the point where he clicked over to being true, like, hardcore superhero mountain man status. And that is the dad that I grew up with. That's the dad that I was always around. The guy that could shove 2 5-gallon propane bottles into a backpack, pick up 2 5-gallon jugs of fuel and a bunch of other things, and haul them all at the same time with no problem through 10 feet of snow. And never get tired and never stop. That was Dad. That was always that guy. Now, there were times when he would stop and his neck would be bothering him because he always had neck issues from injuries in his past when he was younger. But other than that, I remember that slowing you down a little bit. Other than that, I don't really remember anything ever slowing Dad down like that. And he could wield a chainsaw sun up to sundown. So it was just impressive. And it did make it, it was a little sad, as it is when you get older and when he had, so many problems and everything. But also in that way, it made it where, we didn't mind picking up the slack for Dad at all. When it got to a point where, like, he did get tired and he did need to rest, or his neck was bothering him too bad to do something, we had no problem telling Dad to just sit down, which was really hard to get him to ever do. He never wanted to stop and slow down and not be the guy doing the hauling and the working. But we had no problem with that because, we were trying to be the hero at that point. And we were trying to be the ones impressing Dad with how much we could carry and how we never got tired. And Dad set such a hardcore example of being a macho dude and being someone that could carry their body weight and being someone that could pack their pack and carry that deer and haul that water and never complain and not get tired. And then at the end of the day, still want to do a little bit of working out. So Dad set a really good example with that. And it's something that I still carry with me to this day. And even recently, I've been in I've had some things happen that stopped me from being able to work out. And I've been injured where I wasn't able to, to do any kind of working out for a while. And I now know, how my dad felt with your neck being messed up, because I got some stuff that happened that's it's never going to be okay. It's the type thing where you can learn to live with it. You can work around it. And I've gotten back now to the point where I'm able to work out and stuff again. Which it was killing me because it was a good ways. It was a good stretch of time that I wasn't really able to do anything in that way. I was able to get back to my basic physical life to an extent, do the things I had to do, day to day and for work and whatnot. But as far as getting back to the point where I could actually work out, that took a while. And I actually am just now really getting back to the point of being able to work out in that way. And then I nearly cut off my finger and had to give it a little bit more time. But fortunately, like I was saying before, I've always had a good base to work with. I've always had a good base to fall back on, and that sustains me in the times that I need to heal until I can get back to where I can start working out again. And that brings me to another point. Everyone should work out. And I mean everyone. There are no exceptions. Everyone should work out. And I know there are a lot of people that aren't as fortunate as I have been. I have definitely been gifted, in a lot of ways, genetically and with my metabolism and, my will and growing up with my dad and just the different things that I've been through in life and the way that I move through the world. So I've definitely, a lot of it's just me and the way that I am and hardcore, willpower. But there are a lot of ways where I've been definitely blessed with a lot of things that have helped with staying fit in my life. And I know a lot of people aren't that fortunate. A lot of people have different issues that they have to work around or deal with. But that being said, everyone can work out. Anyone listening to this right now, you are capable of working out. You can work out. No matter what condition you're in, to some degree, you can work out. Everyone can. The thing is that you have to just find the thing that you can do, find the level to which you can work out and do that. And work that until you build that level up and up and up and up. Because just like a video game, you can level up yourself. But you have to put in the work and you have to put in the effort. And sometimes it's really hard to do that. Sometimes it's really difficult. And sometimes it seems and feels like what you're doing is never going to make a difference, that it's never going to level you up because it's just not enough. But I want to tell you, like my dad told me, it's not how much you lift. It's how many times you lift it. It's not about being in there lifting stuff like you're Arnold. It's not about lifting massive amounts of weight and always being able to work out or jumping on a treadmill like my little brother and running for half an hour. It's not about that. It's about being consistent and persistent and about doing what you can to better yourself in the ways that you can. And if all you can do is walk across the room before you get tired, then walk across the room and then try to do it twice next time and just keep doing that. And if all you can do is once across the room, then do that. And when you feel, and when you're rested, do it again. And when you're rested, do it again and just keep doing that. If all you can lift is 1 pound, then lift 1 pound and lift it as many times as you can and build up. Do whatever you can to get your blood pumping, because that's another thing. Don't listen to anyone that tells you this isn't an exercise or that's not an exercise or this doesn't count. Anything that gets your blood pumping is exercise. Anything that gets your heart beating and your blood pumping and get you sweating a little bit, that is exercise. Anything that makes you exert yourself a little bit is exercise. So there are degrees to that, but anything that pumps the blood is exercise. So you need to do anything like that that you can to stay physically active, because any degree of physical activity that you do is going to better your life. It's going to make you feel better mentally, physically, and every other way. There are no downsides to being physically active. There are no downsides to working out and doing what you can to better yourself physically. It is very good for you to be physically active. It's one of the best things that anyone can do, in my opinion, to better yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, in every way possible, is to be physically active, is to try and maintain and build up a strong physique, a good core, get your blood pumping. It is the best thing that you can do for your life and to improve your life. And if you have any issues in your life, if you're depressed, if you're lethargic, if you're not feeling well, if you're not doing well, if you feel lost in life, if you get physically active to whatever degree that you can, and you try to level that up and build that up, and like I said, even if it's a small amount and you feel like it's nothing, do that small amount, and eventually it will build up to more. And you do that, and you will start feeling better. You will start thinking better. You will start being more in tune with who and what you are, because you're supposed to be active. It's the law of nature. You're supposed to be active. We're all supposed to be out there running through the jungle, running and climbing and swinging off of vines. Like, that's what we're supposed to be doing. It's what we're built for. So whatever you got going on in life, take a little bit of time, and there's always time. There's always time to do a little bit of working out in whatever capacity that you possibly can, in whatever way that you can, and do what fits right for you. Find the things that you enjoy, find the stuff that you can do, find the things and do them the way that you're able to. And also, as I've said in other podcast breathing exercises, very important. Definitely do that as well. That is something that will also help you a lot. Like if you're somebody that has trouble working out and you get worn out very easily, building up your lung capacity and working on those breaths and doing breath work will massively improve your ability to work out. And also stay hydrated. Always stay hydrated. That will also improve your ability to work out. I drive everyone insane with how much I tell them to stay hydrated, but it's very important. Breathing and drinking a lot of water is very important. Two things you would think would be very obvious, but a lot of people really neglect them. So breathing exercises, drink a lot of water, and do whatever you can to stay physically active. Thank you very much for joining me for another episode of Brown Overboard. I'll see y'all guys next time. Stay safe, respect the danger, and have a good one.